A busy week for the Vancouver Whitecaps continues on the weekend as they face the Seattle Sounders. It's coming off a midweek draw against another Cascadia rival in the Portland Timbers. Wasn't the Whitecaps' best performance in what really was a makeshift team, but they are now undefeated in their last 7, and that match also saw the return of Brian White after missing 3 weeks with a hamstring injury. So that's the good news. Does White's return, though, mitigate some of the difficulties that Jesper Sorensen faces with a small army of players still unavailable for selection, AGR?
Yeah, no, it's tough because, I mean, I really just look at the defense. Like, they're missing their top 2 center backs all year, and Tristan Blackman, Ranko Veselinovic. In Blackman, they hope will return in time for the playoffs. Then you're missing what on paper appear to be your number 3 and 4, but obviously we haven't seen them yet because they haven't played in Jodrik Pupe and Sebastian Schonlau. That's been tough. And then you move up the pitch and you're missing, Thomas Muller for the last few games as he deals with a little problem. Some other names. The good news is Thomas Muller was seen in training this week. I saw him yesterday after, on the recovery session. So it looks like he should be available in some form this weekend. Ryan Gauld's been training in full for about 2 weeks now. And I think it was reported about Axel Schuster said he's even in contention for the Seattle game to make the bench, which is huge because he hasn't been contention at all since his injury. So things are slowly starting to come together, but it's tough because the rubber's hitting the road. Like, they've already played Saturday, Wednesday for 2 weeks, and then they have this Seattle game, they have a Canchamp final, then they have another game the next weekend, and then they play through the international break where they're going to be hit pretty hard as usual. So these next few games are going to be tough with absences.
They've had these couple games in hand based upon where their Western Conference rivals stand, but now they don't control their own destiny anymore in terms of going on and potentially winning a Supporters' Shield. That crown is being handed over to Inter Miami. I'm sure everyone's thrilled about that. So what are the prospects based upon availability and potential schedules for Vancouver Whitecaps to come away with a Supporters' Shield? And on top of that, are the way that things looking right now all of a sudden more tilted towards perhaps having a better chance to come away with an MLS Cup rather than a Shield at this point?
Yeah, I think so with this Portland draw, and even like it started, I think the Houston draw at home, like they've been so good all season, and the fact now that in their last few games they've dropped 4 points to Houston and Portland, who aren't like great teams, like they're both kind of middling to the bottom of the table. I think that's where you really see where the injuries and whatnot have caught up to them. I guess for the Shield, we'll have to see. The thing is, like Miami, you'd think they drop points because Miami has a tough schedule. Like they play every few days, but their schedule kind of soft, and we kind of see it. They steamrolled New York this week. They've been finding form. When Lionel Messi's playing like this, it's kind of hard for anyone to stop them. So for them, just wait. The Whitecaps got 4. I think you're gonna have to win at least 3, and that's a tall order with the injuries and whatnot. So we'll see. The good news is, I think for MLS Cup, if everyone's healthy, and that's a big if, it's going to be hard for other teams to match what they have when everyone's fit. Thomas Muller, potentially Ryan Gauld, if Blackman's back in the mix, what they've got with Berhalter, Kubas, Ali Ahmed, Nelson, Sabi, like they've got the depth and the firepower to win an MLS Cup, but they're going to need to hope that everyone comes back, and most importantly, that they don't miss a beat. Like I'm worried for a Blackman when you miss 6 weeks as a defender. How's he going to look when he drops in? But at the same time, they do have a lot of firepower up front, and maybe they're going to have to goals win games kind of approach in the playoffs.
A shout out to Bilal Halbouni. I think he's been really good. So look, he and Laborda for the time being, we'll see if the European recruits are able to jump on a moving train, but they still remain question marks. And at this point, the substance to this team comes in the depth of players of being able to step up, and superiority in terms of tactics, in terms of planning, and game model for the Whitecaps has been outstanding all season long. The difference makers in attack, though, make the Whitecaps a difficult proposition. I just think that quality-wise, they have a number of different players that can beat you in a number of different ways. But really, that player that's leading the line, and we mentioned him earlier, it's Brian White. Like, he's all important to this team. Noticeable when he's not there as well. I think that Rios has had a decent enough year, but Brian White, most certainly a very important player. He scored 21 goals in 32 games in all competitions on the season. Can the argument be made he's been the team's MVP, best player, or most important player over the course of the season, AGR? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think he's definitely in the mix. It's him, but for me, I think right now there's another player that's also in that discussion, and I think I potentially would lean towards just because he's taken huge steps forward, and I think he again he's a midfielder. He's not going to maybe get the same praise as you get with the goal scorer. Sebastian Berhalter, like he's really stepped up and been incredible this year. I think what really helps his case is he was fantastic in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, and it was a real shame he missed the final because he was man of the match in both legs of the quarterfinals and both legs of the semifinals, which is just bonkers to look back on. In MLS, he's taken a step forward, getting assists, getting goals in his game. He is like the team's kind of emotional leader. You see it on the field, the way when he's on, when he's got that fire, he kind of takes guys with him, and it's been a reason with all the injuries that the team has kind of hummed along. So I think Sebastian Berhalter, for me, deserves every shot of this. But of course, Brian White's goal scoring record does also indicate that it's not a bad choice between either of them, even if maybe I'll lean the midfielder and maybe you lean the forward.
Especially down the stretch. Like, look, I understand Berhalter's value in the team, but typically awards and acknowledgments like this go to attacking players, the guys that provide the goals. And like I said, 21 in all competitions. It's been another outstanding season for Brian White. Was still games to play. So perhaps it's a little premature to anoint who will ever be deemed the Whitecaps MVP on the season. And look, I don't really think that it matters for this club. They've already been in one cup final, and they have the potential to go on and win a treble. And that starts with the Canadian Championship final at BC Place this upcoming Wednesday. I'm not sure what name or what title you want to call this derby, Vancouver versus Vancouver, next week. I'll leave that up to you, AGR, to delegate what we should be calling it on Wednesday. But it's the Whitecaps versus the Eagles in Vancouver FC of the Canadian Premier League. It's been well documented, although Vancouver FC have played much better football over recent weeks under Martin Nash, they're still bottom of the table in the Canadian Premier League, taking on the back-to-back-to-back Canadian Championship winner and a team that's pushing right at the top of the MLS table. So I'm not sure how you prognosticate this game, but is there a blueprint? Is there a path forward where Vancouver FC can at the very least make this Canadian Championship final, the battle for the Voyageurs Cup, at the very least, any way, shape, or form, competitive come Wednesday night?
It's going to be tough because, like, you just see the way the Whitecaps are playing. Like, you would have expected Forge in a 2-2 draw after leg one that they'd come to BC Place and, maybe be able to make the game tough. And the Whitecaps just kind of, played through them and looked super good, even though they were missing some of their guys. Like, it's so tough because this version of the Whitecaps, like, you can't sit back against them. They can break down low blocks in ways they haven't been able to in past years. They're still lethal in transition because, like Bobby Smirnota said after that game, like, you've still got guys like Jaden Nelson and Emmanuel Sabi, Ali Ahmed, guys who can burn you with pace. There's just so much quality across the board. So for Vancouver FC, it's one of those where you need to be able to be compact, but not sit too deep, but not press too high. You have to be perfect defensively. And you also have to maybe take your chances, put some pressure on that back line that's missing some absences. So what I'll say, it's going to be very, very hard for Vancouver FC, and I think they know that. But I guess the nice thing is with finals, there is always certain pressure there. It's rare that you see blowouts in finals. That's why it was so strange to see Cruz Azul do it to the Whitecaps, Inter Milan get blown out by PSG. But, perhaps Vancouver can lean into that because ultimately they have zero pressure. And sometimes that is a nice feeling into a final where you have literally no pressure to maybe make some noise and put the Whitecaps under pressure.
In sports, they say anything can happen. It might be a little cliche, but there's a hint of truth in that statement as well. Vancouver FC will be hoping for some kind of miracle, and we're all hoping for, at the very least, a competitive match in the TELUS Canadian Championship final on Wednesday.